Hi, my name is Steve Murphy, and this is the Law Business Insider. Each and every week, we bring you important issues and the people behind them. And today, we are very privileged to have with us one of America's top attorneys. His name is Tom Methvin. He's with the law firm of Beasley Allen. He will be joining us in a minute. Following him, we will have Walter Mosley, who is one of America's best-known writers. He wrote A Devil in a Blue Dress. He's got a new book out. But first, I want to introduce my co-host, Jack Girardi of the law firm of Girardi & Keese. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Good to see you, Steve.
I have online Tom Methvin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Now, you're talking to us from, where are you, in Birmingham, aren't you?
Montgomery, Alabama.
Montgomery, Alabama. Today, we're going to be talking about a subject matter that a lot of people thought kind of disappeared, and that is asbestos litigation, but it really hasn't, has it, Tom?
I tell you, the asbestos litigation has not disappeared, and that's because each year millions of pounds of asbestos are being imported into America in products. 60 countries have banned asbestos outright, but in America, we're still using it.
Is that right? Name some of these products that we're importing here that we're using it.
Well, we saw it in crayons for kids. We've seen it in some building materials. We've seen it in lots of things that you would never imagine. But the thing that bothers me the most about the asbestos situation in America is that the industry that makes asbestos has known since the early 1900s about all the problems with asbestos. In fact, I'd like to quote a couple of internal memos that we've gotten from several companies' handbooks. One is from Aetna Insurance Company, 1934. This is what they said. They said, asbestosis was incurable and usually results in disability followed by death. That's 1934. In 1949, we got a document marked confidential from Exxon, which says that lung cancer is caused by asbestos.
Now, talk about smoking guns.
That's it. And then the one that grieves me the most, really, is the one from Bendix Corporation from 1966, which was now part of Honeywell. Their quote was, well, if people have enjoyed a good life while working with the asbestos products, why not die from it? So you can see that the industry has known about asbestos and how dangerous it is for years. It's kind of like the tobacco industry knowing about nicotine and how it gets you hooked, but it's been covered up for years. But now, even though people are starting to find out about it, and even though thousands of people are dying from it every year, it's still being used.
Tom, you come from a firm of trial lawyers. You have, I think you indicated 40 or so in your law firm down there.
That's right, Jack.
And that's the same. I'm privileged to be in the same kind of work. And to take a moment for trial lawyers, it was really the work of trial lawyers that brought this to public consciousness or public awareness about the dangers of asbestos. Isn't that right?
That is exactly right. The trial lawyers were the ones that first brought this up and started litigation against the companies. And at the times when they were representing the injured and the people who had been killed, the industry was laughing at them, saying, asbestos doesn't kill anybody, it doesn't hurt anybody. Well, we realize now, after years and years of litigation, of finally getting the internal documents, we realize that they knew all along they were killing people. But let me just tell you this number is just shocking. There's a particularly bad thing that comes from asbestos called mesothelioma, which is an asbestos cancer. And every year in America, 3,000 people are diagnosed with that. 3,000 new people every year are diagnosed with that.
And that's incurable, isn't it?
Every single one of them dies. All 3,000 of them are going to die, and it's a slow, painful death. And statistics show worldwide over the next 15 years, 1 million people will die from mesothelioma from asbestos.
I'm going to get into what that comment you mentioned, how so much of this is now coming from abroad, but let me go back a little bit again. It was really in the 70s, the late 60s and the early 70s, that asbestos litigation started to really expand here in the States, right?
That's exactly right. And it really got going then.
And then that had some effect on a number of the domestic corporations that were involved in producing asbestos, right?
That's right. A lot of them quit producing it.
Okay. They did that. They quit producing it because of the economic consequences.
That is exactly right. If it hadn't been for the lawsuits, the asbestos in America would still be being produced. And we have thankfully been able to cut the amount of asbestos being used in America way back. Now, we still got a long way to go. But I can tell you this, if the litigation and the lawsuits had never been filed for the injured people and for the widows and the people that have been killed, the asbestos would still be everywhere.
Well, Tom, tell our audience a little bit about how the international or non-United States entities have picked up the slack in producing these products. They still have to be distributed through domestic corporations, don't they?
That's right. That's exactly right. Jack, would you believe that 60 countries have banned asbestos outright? They will not let it in their country at all, but yet we still have it. And most of ours is imported because we don't have much domestic production of it now. And there's a senator, I believe, from Washington State, and Jack, you may know his name or her name is Murray, I think. And that person has introduced legislation to ban all asbestos in America, and I support that legislation 100%.
I think it is Deborah Murray, I think.
Yes.
And where is she in that? Do you know?
Well, she has pushed it, but so far is not on the top agenda to get passed.
You know, all of these, Tom and Jack, all of these cases illustrate one thing. You guys, you're the plaintiff lawyers, and you're very successful at what you do. You are constantly battling corporate America that tries every which way to deny legitimate claims and problems that people get as a result of their products, right?
Steve, you're exactly right. The way I say it is this, and it's the best way to look at it, is the large corporations in America, some of them that want to do wrong, I'm not saying they all do, but the ones that particularly want to do wrong with asbestos or insurance or tobacco or what have you, they know only one thing. There is no consumer protection as far as the government trying to protect them. They can wine and dine the legislators. They can make campaign contributions to all branches of government. They can have say-so in who the regulators are. There's only one place that they understand and one place that they fear and one place that is a check and balance that'll hold them accountable, and that's 12 people chosen at random as the conscience of the community, and that's the jury system. And the right to trial by jury is the best form of consumer protection we have in this country. And as you can imagine, they have tried to take that away. First, by talking the American people into giving up their own rights in what they call tort reform to limit what a jury will do. They have been slick, and they've said to the American consumer, you need to give up your own right in order to help us economically. And a lot of consumers have bought that. And then after they got tort reform in most states, they went one step further and said, we don't want to just limit what a jury will do. Now we're going to take it further, and we're going to say there can be no jury because we're going to have what they call arbitration agreements where you can't even go to a jury. You have to go to what they call binding arbitration. So they even tried to take it one step further under the past administration. They had gone from limiting a jury to no jury, and finally they started what they call preemption, which says if a drug or something is approved by the FDA or a car is approved by the NHTSA, which is a federal government agency, there can be no claim ever in front of anybody because of what they call preemption.
Do you think, or do you find, Tom, that there are little inroads that are being made against the notions of preemption and arbitration, that our country is starting to kind of understand there's consequences to this?
I certainly do. The biggest thing that helped the movement of letting the country know is when the rich folks started being done wrong. When everybody lost their money in the stock market, that's when they realized, hey, man, maybe what these trial lawyers have been saying all this time, there's some truth to it. That is what I've seen pick up steam.
Tom, tell our audience a little bit about some of the judgments and the settlements and the verdicts that you've gotten against some of these big companies. It's a lot of money. Tell us what it is.
I've been very blessed to be involved in, at the time, the largest verdict in the history of Alabama, and still the largest predatory lending verdict in America that I know of, and that was involving a door-to-door sales and finance scheme where a large company came into someone's home and sold them a satellite dish and charged them 300% interest, and the jury awarded $581 million to that family to punish the corporation to stop from what they have done. And that was one I did personally, and my firm has been involved in a $12 billion verdict against Exxon on behalf of the state of Alabama for cheating the taxpayers on a oil and gas bed. And we've also been involved in several $100 million verdicts against drug companies.
By the way, give out your website so folks can find out more about the fine work your firm does.
Well, thank you very much. BeasleyAllen.com is our website, so BeasleyAllen.com.
Okay. Now, what kind of cases are you currently working on with asbestos litigation?
We're currently working on mesothelioma cases. In fact, we've got one going to trial next week, and that is the thing about mesothelioma is 3,000 people are diagnosed with it every year in America. It is deadly, and from the time you touch the asbestos until you actually have the disease, the average time is 25 years. So we are constantly, when someone comes to us with mesothelioma, we have to say to them, where were you 25 years ago? Mm-hmm. What asbestos were you around? Were you in the construction industry? Were you at the railroad? Were you at an oil refinery? Were you in an asbestos mine? To try to identify who made the asbestos at the time so we can try to hold the wrongdoers accountable.
What if that company's out of business?
If that company is out of business and there's no insurance coverage, then there's not much you can do if there's only one company who made it. But usually you have several companies involved that either made it or sold it. And so usually there's someone that's still in business that had some involvement that you can try to help your clients by going after.
And Tom, do you find too that there are other corporate entities that are producing, not the ones who originally produce it, but utilize that? For example, you'll find the car companies that might use it in the brakes. For example,
right. Exactly.
So even though you may not know the point or who that manufacturer was, but you knew who the supplier of that different product that included it, right?
That's exactly right. And so you have to go down the chain and look 25 years ago and do a lot of investigation and try to find out what they used, who made it, who sold it, what product it was in, and where the people were they exposed to it in more than one place. We've even seen the litigation headed now where the wives were washing the husband's clothes, and the husband's clothes had asbestos on them. The wives have now gotten mesothelioma solely from washing their husband's clothes, just from picking them up and put them in the washing machine day after day for years.
You know, when you go into a court of law and you have your experts testify to this, you know, the wives contracting the disease by washing the clothes, the company, the corporate America, comes in with their experts too to refute that, don't they?
Yes, they certainly do.
So it's really kind of up to the jury to decide what's going to, you know, what the truth is, right?
The jury has to decide the truth, and we have found that when you show the jury all the conduct of the company and how they knew asbestos was bad and how they hid it from their workers and did not let them know, and they really get mad about that. And they really want to hold them accountable.
In the few minutes that we have left here, are there some products that all of us should stay away from because of the exposure to asbestos?
You know, I can't tell you the names of all the products to stay away from today because, but I do know that I read an article recently where children were playing with crayons, and some people did a test on them and found that the crayons even had asbestos in them.
And kids tend to put them in their mouth, don't they?
Absolutely. They certainly do. And the other thing is older buildings, say buildings that are 30 years old or older, a lot of those still have got asbestos in them, and little paint chips that may be around may have asbestos in or around them. So you have to be careful of that.
Excellent. Watch out for that. You know, we've come to the end of our time. Tom, hand out your website again and your phone number so folks can get a hold of you.
Okay. The website is BeasleyAllen.com, and the phone number is 800-898-2034.
By the way, I want to emphasize both for Jack as well as for Tom that when you call their firm, if they take your case, you don't have to pay them.
That's exactly right.
They're the guys that put the money up to fight the case because they want to win, and then they only get paid when they win, right?
That's exactly right. It's called a contingent fee contract.
Okay, I want to thank you very much to have you on the show. I'm going to have you back again in a couple of weeks, don't forget, okay?
Look forward to it. Thank y'all.
All right, very good.
Thanks, Tom.
I am very pleased to have with us now one of America's most celebrated, important, and best-known writers, Walter Mosley. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
You got a new book out, and it is called The Long Fall, the First Leonid McGill Mystery by Walter Mosley. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, this is my first hard-boiled crime series. This is a guy, you know, he has a bald head, and you can see the lumps that he's taken in his life. He's been a bad guy most of his life. He's been a private detective, but he's worked for the mob. You know, he's gotten people blamed for crimes they didn't commit, gotten people sent to prison for no reason. He's really done some awful things. And at this late date in his life, in his early 50s, he's realized that everything he's done is wrong, and he's going to turn around and he's going to try to do right.
Yeah,
it's not unlike America. in this day and age.
But I like the way you say that he's going to try to do right. He's still got a lot of bad habits, doesn't he?
Well, listen, his whole life has been doing wrong. It's like I was trying to explain to one person. It says, it's like if for your whole life you were a torturer.
Right.
And you have the tools of a torturer, and then you decide you're going to be a farmer. Well, you still have to use the tools that you have.
There's a few animals that are going to get tortured.
Nails, the Iron Maiden,
Walter, while he may have been a bad guy, there was one comment in one of the reviews that said about McGill, he never killed anyone maliciously.
Exactly. Well, he's not a murderer. One of the things is he knows an assassin who he calls a commercial serial killer. But he himself has never murdered anybody, nor had anybody murdered. But he's destroyed people's lives, and some people have died. He's gotten people sent to prison, and they died in prison. He hasn't been a good guy.
It kind of reminds me a little of the character that you wrote. What was it, the Tempest Tales?
Yeah.
Tempest was trying to explain to St. Peter why he was justified in doing the things that he did. Doesn't it kind of remind you a little bit of that?
A little bit, except for Socrates. Leonid would say, "Yeah, I did it." I don't think he would argue. Tempest is actually a good guy, and Leonid is a good guy.
Now
he's really trying his best,
right,
to do right in the world where he's done wrong.
Yeah.
Like he's not running away from it or anything. And that's, the mob is mad at him, the police are trying to get him, old friends don't understand him, and his kids are in all kinds of trouble. But he's trying to do right.
He's trying to square himself right in the universe.
Yeah.
Because he knows his time is coming.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Now,
actually, in some ways, he knows his time has come.
Right.
When he's seen clearly that everything he's done is wrong.
A lot of authors put their mark on certain cities. You, for a long time, had Los Angeles as the place where you wrote a lot of books. You've been in New York for some time.
Yeah.
And I understand this is really your first novel that brands New York as kind of your own backyard, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have written about New York before, and I've had books that happen in New York before, so I can't say it's the first time I've written about it, but this is the first time I put a real crime novel there, and it's also contemporary because a lot of my mysteries before have all been kind of historical, and they've been not real history, but the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, like that. This is contemporary. This is today, and it's an interesting thing because in the Easy Rawlins novels especially, and what I'm best known for, you have racism, monolithic racism that Easy carries around on his back. And the book, a lot has to be about that because that's the life he lived. But in Leonid's case, race is a very different thing. I mean, there is race, there's no getting around that. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Somebody might not like him, but they don't like him because of the shoes he's wearing or the suit he's wearing because he's not tall enough or he's too fat. They don't dislike him because he's black. They like to hang out with Lenny Kravitz,
Walter, let me ask you a little bit about how you do this. You've written a number of novels. What's your work ethic like? In other words, are you one of those who locks himself in a room and says, I must do 10 pages a day? Or how does that come up? Tell us about as they say, the creative process, okay?
Well, that sure does sound like a punishment there. Lock myself in a room.
Right.
Well, to begin, I just say in the beginning, I'm going to say a little bit about it, but I did write a book called This Year You Write Your Novel,
right?
Which tells everything I know about it. But now I'll leave that alone, and I'll say, my ethic is the simplest thing in the world. I wake up every morning 365 days a year and try my best to write for 3 hours.
Now, let me stop you there. When you say, I try my best, do you have days when you sit down at the computer? Is it the computer?
Yeah.
And you don't write anything?
No.
Okay.
If I get to sit down at the computer, I'm going to write. There are days, like this morning, that I woke up at 5 in San Francisco, and I had to rush to get in the plane to get to Seattle. I couldn't write then. I did write once I got to the hotel. It got me a couple hours in. But usually it's an external thing that stops me, not an internal one.
Now, you're writing on new projects all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're working on another book right now.
Right at this moment, I'm writing a short story.
Mm-hmm. And you're
But
writing.
yeah, I write screenplays, I write plays, I write novels. Whatever kind of lands in front of me.
Do you ever find yourself carrying out an idea and say, no, I can't do that because I used that in my book 3 years ago or 8 years ago or 10 years ago?
I've never repeated an idea that I've done. Not yet.
No, I understand you have. I mean, even repeating in the initial draft, you've been able to come up with fresh material.
Everything is pretty much fresh. It's a wonderful. I didn't start writing until my mid-30s. I wasn't published till I was 38. So I have a great store of things. All these things I was experiencing and thinking about and doing. And I didn't know I was a writer, but they were, being stored up. So I have a lot to write about. I think it's much harder, when you start writing when you're very young, in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have, as quite as broad a palette as far as life experience is concerned.
I remember we had a conversation one time before when someone asked you, I believe, is it lonely being a writer? And I think your response was, it was lonely doing what I was doing before, which was a computer programmer.
Yeah,
right?
That's lonely. Being a computer programmer is lonely. You try to have a conversation with a woman in a bar about, hexadecimal code, and you see how far you get. You say you're a writer, they say, oh, that sounds very interesting. I'm thinking about writing a book.
Is that why you became a writer?
Well, no. However, I did find it out. So when writers tell me, "Oh, this is a lonely existence," I just laugh. I just say, "Man, you must be crazy. This is a fun experience."
A recent profile of you in the Washington Post described you as someone who injects in all his work overarching questions of how African Americans and other Americans see each other and how human beings see themselves. As someone who explores these overarching questions, what does the election of Barack Obama mean to you?
Barack Obama's election has so many different roots coming, from the kernel, that it's a really hard thing to talk about. The most important thing, having nothing to do with race, is that he was the only person for the job.
That's true.
In the whole field of people, he was the only person. Because, one of the biggest problems that people have is that the older you are, the more you live in the past. And the decisions you make and the choices you make are based on things which may or may not no longer be true,
Right.
Which may or may no longer be true. Barack Obama was the only person running for president who lived in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need 21st century answers. He's a moderate. I'm a progressive. We're very different kinds of people. But, being a black man in America, I'm very happy. I got a black president. As far as being, my black man side, he doesn't have to do anything else. He's president. That's good. That's great. But understanding him as our president, I think, one of the things I really enjoy, I go to places and people say, do you feel that because of your biracial background that you have an identity with Barack Obama? And I said, 98% of the African Americans in this country have biracial backgrounds. They got French and English and Spanish and Jewish and Arabic and African and Native American and Asian. They have it all. We're all that. There's no one, you can say African American, but it's just kind of a general appellation.
Mm-hmm.
We're all different. And in that, Barack Obama just fits naturally.
Let me get back to your gift of storytelling for a minute. Where does it come from?
I have no idea. I maybe one. My father was a great storyteller, and he loved telling stories. And the only thing he liked more than telling stories was listening to me tell him little cracked fairy tales when I was a little kid. And the man and the bee stung the man, and he would just listen to me like I was Shakespeare.
I happened to hear on NPR today that today is the birthday of Hans Christian Andersen. And the reason that he started writing children's stories, he was starving. He had another book that the publisher wouldn't touch, so he wrote three stories that his father had told him, and they were a major sensation.
Oh, wonderful.
So he continued to write them every year. He didn't write them all at once. He wrote them every year.
Mm-hmm.
your characters, your stories, your plots, do you plot out your stories in advance?
Sometimes.
Do you?
But sometimes not. My druthers is not to do it. I like just to sit in front of a novel, a blank piece of paper, a blank screen, and just start writing and see where it takes me. It's a lot of fun. If I feel that I need to finish something quickly, I'm on a time schedule or something else I want to do, I outline things.
Mm-hmm. There's a number of scenes in The Long Fall where McGill, the ex-boxer, is forced to call on his boxing skills. Are you a boxing fan?
Oh, I love boxing.
Yeah. Were you ever a boxer yourself?
No.
Would you like to be?
Too much pain.
Miguel has an interesting background, to say the least. You can't quite figure out his politics. What are his politics?
This is a very interesting thing. I'm not quite sure yet.
Mm-hmm.
His father was a kind of a maverick communist revolutionary union organizer guy who taught Leonid at home until the age of 12 when he went off to fight in some war in Central America and never returned. His mother dies of a broken heart, and Leonid rejects everything that his father taught him. However, all he knows is everything his father taught him. And so he's kind of stuck between rejection and love, which so many of us are.
Right.
And so, in the end, he's a pragmatist.
Mm-hmm.
But he understands things through the way that his father explained things to him.
Takes us all a while, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Listen, you have been listening to Walter Mosley. He's got a new book out. It's called The Long Fall. Give out your website where they can get more information about this, Walter.
Walter Mosley, that's Walter Mosley, Mosley, all one word, .com.
I want to thank you very much for sharing on the show. We wish you continued success with your book.
Thank you so much. It's great to be on your show every time. I just love it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Talk
Walter.
to you soon.
I also want to thank my co-host, Jack Girardi of the law firm of Girardi & Keese. Jack, thanks for being on the show.
It's kind of nice to be around, Steve.
Hand out your phone number and your website so folks can find out more information about you.
All right. The phone number in the 213 area is 977-0211. And our website is GirardiKeese.com.
This is Steve Murphy. This is the Law Business Insider. Thank you for joining us, and you can get more information about our guest and the issues at www.lbishow.com. Thank you.